Right, okay, numbers looking fairly static. So good morning, everyone. Hello, I'm Colette Wright, and I'll be your host this morning. We've got a lot to get through in the next hour, so let's make a start. So we're here to talk about market-wide half-hourly settlement, how and when it will impact your business. So what we'll cover today is you've got Colette Wright as your host. I've got a couple of experts on our panel, Ben Whitelam and Joe Layton, who you'll be hearing from to cover the what, why and who for market-wide half-hourly settlement. We'll take a look at the revised timeline for market-wide half-hourly implementation. We'll look at some of the key changes underneath market-wide half-hourly and some of the new processes that are to come. We'll touch on the benefits to businesses and also some of the cost implications. And with our experts, we'll be also taking a look at data invoicing changes, the new meter technologies and software, and the key bit is to why engage and what are the next steps to take. And hopefully, if we've got some time, we'll be taking some questions from yourselves. So on your screen, you will see a questions tab. So please, if you've got any questions during the webinar, if you could post them in there, then we'll come to those at the Q&A at the end. So before we get started, just wanted to let you know that this webinar will be being recorded and it will be shared with you afterwards, so you can watch it on demand. And also for any questions that we don't get time to answer today, we will be responding to all of those via email after the event. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'd like to invite Ben on screen, please. And Ben, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Colette, and good morning, everyone. My name's Ben Whitelam, and I'm the Director of Commercial and of Data and Metering Services here at npower Business Solution. What does that mean? It means that all of my role at the moment, the biggest project I've got going on is this market-wide half-hourly settlement thing. So I'm really pleased to be with you today and to share a little bit of what this program is, how it's going, and what businesses really need to be doing now and over the next couple of years to make sure that they gain the best benefits they possibly can from the energy transition for the UK and keep their costs as low as possible as well. So thanks for the welcome, Colette. Let's get into the content. So what is this market-wide half-hourly settlement beast? Well, internally, we're calling this the biggest change to the British electricity market since privatisation, and it is pretty huge. So all electricity meters are going to go through a process over the next couple of years to become settled on a half-hourly basis. Some meters are already settled on a half-hourly basis, but even those meters will go through a change over the next couple of years, because what's actually going on in the background is we're completely ripping out all of the systems and flows that used to make this industry go round and replacing them with a 21st century system that will see us well into this century, frankly, if the longevity of the previous system's anything to go by. So traditional meters are also included. That's a bit bonkers, but I'll explain exactly how that's going to work in a few slides' time. And the settlement window will come down from 14 months to 4. And that's quite a significant change for those of us who run suppliers, and it'll drive some change into what we need to do with customers as well. Industry migration is going to start this year. So we've been deep in testing and planning for this change for the last couple of years. That continues at pace and is being driven really hard by government. The migration will start this year and it will finish during 2027. With all that said, the last time we checked, only half of businesses knew what market-wide half-hourly settlement was. And actually, from events that I've been to over the back half of last year, that remains true, even for audiences like TPIs in our market. So that's partly why MBS is really keen to be out there in the market, explaining this and trying to make it as easy as possible for all industry counterparts to make the most of this change. The other bit I should say is some people won't know what settlement is. Settlement is basically how the industry goes around in the background to make sure that everyone's paid for their bit of the consumption all across the UK. So that's what settlement is. It's how the money flows go around in the back of the UK electricity industry. So why is it being introduced? Getting our electricity system modernised and ready for the energy transition absolutely relies on this change. So it's a key enabler for our transition. Even before the Clean Power 2030 plan, we had a net zero ambition for the UK. With the Clean Power 2030 plan, it's even more important, because actually getting that plan done at a cost that allows the UK to remain competitive will rely really heavily on consumers changing their behaviour and on flexibility coming into the market. Market-wide half hourly is really about enabling that transition, and that's why it's super important that we get it done, and that's why government are pushing it so hard. By ensuring that we've got half hourly consumption data for every meter across the UK, we're already seeing some of this come through, that this will encourage innovation to support a smarter and more flexible electricity system, effectively making sure that we can make the best of the fantastic renewable resources being developed all across and around the UK at the moment, effectively so that the electricity system can meet the changing demands of its consumers. By enabling us to see the true half-hourly costs of every meter, will also help to drive a change in consumer behaviour. Ultimately, that's what we need to do. We need to see demand following the supply a little bit more closely. That will help make the energy transition easier and cheaper for all of us. What is the programme? Well, it's a big centrally driven government programme. So the government has mandated it, it's overseen by Ofgem, Elexon are the delivery body, and all the suppliers will have to go through their own implementation of this change, as will every metering agent involved in the UK electricity market. So every participant is impacted, all the way from the government bodies through to the customers at the very end. So, timelines. As with all big change programs, the timelines are a little bit subject to change themselves. However, we are running to this as a timeline currently, and everything we're seeing from government and from the other industry bodies is that there will be a huge amount of pressure to get this done on time to the timelines you see in front of you here. So here we are in the wonderfully cold January 2025. We've got industry testing ongoing. So we're involved, as are a number of other parts of the E.ON UK business and a whole suite of other industry counterparties in doing testing of the systems today. We're then going to go through, there's never only one thing going on in the electricity industry, is there? We've got this radio teleswitch topic, which is going to happen in June 2025. So that's another big thing that's happening in the metering world at the moment. Just to take a minute on that, if you've got any radio teleswitch meters, or you're not sure if you've got any radio teleswitch meters, they tend to be running things like storage heaters or boilers, that kind of thing. You need to get in touch with your supplier and verify whether you've got any, because the kit that makes them work is going to stop in June 2025, and that might leave your heating permanently on or permanently off, with some predictable results there in terms of cost or your comfort in the building. So anyway, back to market-wide. We've got industry testing ongoing currently that will continue all the way from here to October, and at that point we will start the migration. That's only for early adopters, suppliers and agents who've been through systems integration testing. In our own world, our agent business is a part of systems integration testing, that first cohort blazing a trail into the new market. Our supply business will follow slightly later. That migration will start in October. Everyone who currently isn't in SIT, it will start in May next year. And then we've got this deadline of May 2027. So 1 year to get every single electricity meter in the UK through a migration process. This is going to be an incredibly busy time for the industry, but it should be nearly invisible to customers. We'll then transition over to a new settlement window by July 2027. That's the plan. The other thing that's happening through all of this is that spot in the middle there. So metering portfolios have historically been fitted out there in the world with 2G or 3G meters and connectivity through to the industry. The trouble is that all of us stopped using 2G and 3G phones years ago. So there's a push now to turn off those 2G and 3G networks and migrate all meters to 4G. This is going to happen by each network telecom provider, which means that that December 2030 date is probably giving a full sense of comfort. We're already seeing telecoms providers expecting to turn off their networks in the next year or two. So that's well worth being aware of as well. Again, if you're not sure what communications technology your meters are using, talk to your supplier, talk to your metering agents. We are already out there now as a metering agent, ripping out 2G and 3G SIMs proactively, changing those over to 4G. The other thing to watch out for that is just if you've got a metering agent with any add-on charges for visits at a later date, and you've got a big portfolio of 2G meters, that could become a problem. So well worth keeping an eye on. This market-wide implementation, as I say, it looks like a long timeline. We've got roughly a little bit over a year from here until the industry migration proper really kicks off. But these timelines feel incredibly short for those of us in the industry, and this is our main effort at the moment in terms of industry change. So let me recap. What are these changes? Well, during the migration window, changes are going to be made behind the scenes. The whole industry at the moment is based on, are you a half-hourly meter or are you a non-half-hourly meter? Well, when everyone becomes a half-hourly, it comes into the half-hourly market, that no longer makes any sense because everything's a half-hourly meter. So we're going to end up with an industry that's defined by the technology that underlies your metering. That basically means you're going to end up with an advanced segment that's got all of the half-hourly and AMR meters in it. You've got a smart segment, which, sensibly has all the smart meters in it and weirdly has all of the remaining traditional meters in it. And then you're just going to end up with an unmetered segment down the bottom. Even unmetered supplies will be half-hourly settled at the end of this journey. That's actually coming up quite soon. So that's the way that the market will change, and those are the contracts you're going to need. In a little bit more detail then, this is how the agent roles will change between our current arrangements and the new arrangements after market-wide half-hourly settlement has gone live. So your MOP service today, which maintains your meter, make sure it's operating properly, that will transition to become a metering service advanced, and frankly will continue to do roughly the same thing. That's the person responsible for making sure that your meter is working. Your half-hourly data collector service will transition across to an advanced data service, and this is the service that's effectively dialing each meter every day in the half-hourly world to get that data, bring it back into the central industry systems, push that through to settlement, push it through to billing. That's what those roles are doing. And if you've got half-hourly meters today or AMR meters today, you've already got those services in place. Well worth making sure you understand what your service currently is, what you're paying for that service, whether you're working with a provider that you trust and that's giving you good value for money and an efficient and effective metering service. If you've got smart or trad meters on the wall today, again, we've got a MOP and a DC role. Those will transition across into the smart equivalents of those roles. And then in the unmetered world, we've got this thing called an UMSO. UMSO doesn't change, that's completely the same, and a meter administrator, which will become this UMSDS to align with the other markets. This is going to mean that the terminology on your invoices changes, and if you're a bill validator or you use bill validation, be well worth checking that your invoices are going to continue to validate smoothly as you go over the change, because any change to those invoices, it can get a little bit twitchy in the bill validation world. So that's what's happening. In terms of our contracts, if you've got a MOP with us, we will absolutely just transition you straight to our metering service advanced, and you don't necessarily need to do anything. That will all happen in the background, and you'll flip over into the new services at the point that your supplier decides to move you. So that's the other thing that's important about all this. These changes are fundamentally supplier driven because it's the suppliers who are accountable for getting the settlement performance right. And it's the suppliers, frankly, who end up in trouble if the settlement performance doesn't work. So that's what's going on here. It's a supplier-driven migration with a big government hammer encouraging us all to go as quickly as possible. We've been running a Q&A on market-wide and questions and that kind of thing on this for a fair while now. And some of the questions that have come through for us are these things. So just sharing these answers for you to questions we get asked a fair bit. So we're going to have a migration period of time, and that might mean that you end up transitioning across into the new market arrangements with your existing supplier. But then what if you've signed a deal with someone who hasn't transitioned yet? is the market still open to you? Well, the good news here is that it absolutely is. So you can move from a migrated to a non-migrated supplier. This is called reverse migration, and it enables consumers to continue to access the whole of the market during the transition period. So I'm glad that's in place. I hope it's a process that we don't need to use too much, but it's absolutely there, and the whole market will remain open to everyone through the transition. The other question that we get a fair bit is, how on earth do you do half-hourly settlement if you haven't got a half-hourly meter on the wall, or you haven't got an automated meter? And that's all dealt with by this load shaping service. So this is effectively a service that will exist centrally in the industry, and will say, okay, you've got a traditional meter, you've got to read from here to here, and it will create a half-hourly shape for that consumption, so that can go into settlement, and that's what all the industry processes will be based on. We haven't got a huge amount of detail of how that's going to work, but at a conceptual level, that's what the load shaping service is, and that's how we get over the fact that we will be transitioning traditional or dumb meters into the new market arrangements. So we're going to go to a quick poll now. So we've got a poll. There we are. Thank you very much for bringing that up. And the question here is, are you currently reviewing your energy consumption, and how often? So the government's really hoping that giving us all of this new half-hourly data is going to enable customers to be far sharper, far more intelligent in terms of how they use their energy. That's my hope as well, frankly, but interested to know how often all of you are currently reviewing your energy consumption in terms of making use of that. I will warn you, this is one of those mandatory audience participation things. So I encourage you all to click and answer, otherwise you won't still be able to see the slides. It is a little bit panto. Okay, thank you all for your answers. So we're seeing there a good spread across the top few options. So monthly review of energy consumption, perhaps on the way into a management meeting, or perhaps in terms of setting the next month's production schedule. That's fantastic. If you're only reviewing your energy consumption when you're validating your invoices, the richness of this data should give you so much more than that. So those 17% of us who are reviewing this energy data every day, those are the people who are going to be getting the most benefits from this. Probably businesses that are quite intensive in how they do it. Certainly, you know, people running businesses like hotels, where it's quite a large proportion of total costs, or the profit margins are a little bit thin at times. A review of your energy data every day to identify what's going on in that data and where you can make savings. That's a really good practice to get into. And for those 5 who are not at all, please get on it. I'd really encourage you, because you can make decent savings just by checking when and how you're using your energy. And there's plenty of people who can help you with that, including our good selves. So thank you for those poll responses. The benefits to business. So why are we doing this? Well, because we've been told to by the government, frankly. But there are benefits to businesses to doing this, and that means that those businesses who make the most of these benefits are going to have a competitive edge in their cost base versus everyone else in their industry. So here are the benefits. You're going to get more granular and timely data to help you understand how and when you're using electricity. This should enable you to make better choices about your energy management practices, your production scheduling, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Even having a look, you know, what are you using at the weekend? Are you shut? If you are shut, why are you using anything at all at the weekend? Questions like that are enabled by market-wide half-hourly settlement, because it will give us data for every meter, not just those who are large enough to have previously gone through a half-hourly metering transition. There's going to be the potential for new products. There's going to be more innovation in the market, new technologies and flexibility services. So we're seeing a lot of announcements about this at the moment. And I guarantee you there's lots going on behind closed doors in every single supplier to figure out how are we going to make the absolute most of this data. It's an explosion of data into the industry. particularly in the residential and SME markets. There's going to be data that never previously existed in terms of when people are using their electricity, but also in the B2B market, where we've had this kind of split market in the past between those who are large enough to look at their half-hourly data and those who aren't. Everyone's going to be in this space, and that's attracting a lot of interest, a lot of strategic interest from people in the market in pushing forward with that. These benefits are only available to consumers if they've got a good meter on the wall. So I spoke previously about, what happens if you've got a traditional meter, and basically you're going to have a shape made up for you by someone else. So getting these benefits for your business to enable you to crunch down on your energy consumption or use at cheaper times of day are only going to be available if you've got a working advanced or smart meter on the wall. So I'd encourage every business to talk to your supplier, talk to your metering agents about making sure that you've got good quality, effective metering on the wall, that it's working, that it's polling properly. Not only means you can work with your energy data better, it also means you're not going to end up with loads of rebilling, which we know is one of those things that consumers absolutely hate, regardless of exactly the structure of that. The wider benefits, Ofgem's put these figures out there at the kickoff of the programme, between 1.5 and 4.5 billion in net benefits by 2045. Getting this transition done will enable that, but it won't get you the full way. We also need to see the products come through. We also need to see consumers change their behaviour. And actually quite a lot of that benefit is going to accrue to the domestic market, not to B2B. But there are absolutely benefits getting this programme done right for all businesses, if that business is able to grasp them with the proper metering technology and with the right management approaches as well. The other big question we get asked, a little bit predictably, is what's all this going to cost? And the short answer is the programme itself is all centrally funded. So we've got government funding for that, we've got industry bodies paying for that, we've also got suppliers investing multi-million pounds into upgrading their systems and running big projects to make this thing happen. In terms of the businesses who've currently got half-hourly contracts in place, they're unlikely to pay any more. Certainly, this isn't something that's causing us to review our half-hourly pricing any more than we normally would. Yeah. Businesses with traditional meters may see a cost differential, and this comes back to that 4-month settlement thing that I spoke about before. So currently, as a supplier, you could meet all of your obligations by reading a traditional meter once per year. That is not going to hold in the new market. And we're seeing some research externally that says that the costs to the UK as a whole could be as high as 200 million from having to get more frequent meter reads. Ultimately, this isn't going to be just spread out across everyone. Those businesses with traditional meters may have to pay more because you're going to need to read that meter every 3 to 4 months as an absolute minimum to remain compliant in the industry. So just another reason to make good use of your supplier, push them to make sure you've got good modern metering that's cost effective across your sites. Again, it's B2B, isn't it? This is businesses. You've seen one business, so the costs are going to depend on your portfolio types. But this is very much how we're looking at it internally, is that advanced metering systems that are working help us to hit what's required from the industry, help us deliver a good customer experience. Traditional meters, really, really detrimental to both of those objectives and a lot more cost involved in servicing those. So that's an overview. That's market-wide half-hourly. I'm going to hand back to Colette now.
That's great. Thanks very much, Ben. And yeah, a great presentation. Lots and lots of detail, really crucial bits in there about the timelines, about how it's going to impact us all, and some key takeaways for consumers there in terms of just understanding your energy portfolio, what your meter types are, where you're going, what your portfolio looks like. So that's been really brilliant. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is hand over to our next presenter, Joe. So Joe, if you could join us on screen, please. We'll touch a bit more on some of the metering aspects.
Hi Colette. So yeah, my name is Jo Layton and I'm the Metering Assurance Manager at npower Business Solutions, focusing on all things metering and settlements based, in short. So I'm here to talk to you about some of the changes in a little bit more detail. So Ben's already touched on the fact that the different segments that we're going to be seeing, also on the fact that there will be a lot more kind of metering data available, and also the fact that every business is different. So the changes for each business will vary to quite an extent. So each customer's invoice will be different. We also know that different customers use different ways of validating their invoices as well. So there will also be some changes to standing data. So the example here on the slide on the right hand side gives you a bit of an overview of the impact of what we lovingly call the now I've forgotten what it's called. No, the top line. So that's around some of the standing data changes, because as we've discussed, we're moving away from a model that is half hourly and non-half hourly. So some of the technical differences or segments that we've seen in that kind of non-half hourly space are going to be much less used and won't be seen on invoices in the future. We will still see profile classes, but those will only be used for profile classes 2 and 4, which will continue to be used for economy 7 and 10 metres. In terms of new metering technologies, advanced meters will help to get you a better picture of your energy consumption. So they'll get you really detailed information about not only how much energy you're using, but most importantly, when you're using it. And that will enable us to, and other suppliers, to base your invoices on that, which in turn will give you the ability to be able to make more informed decisions about your ongoing energy management strategy. We've got another kind of poll for you now. So are you fully aware of the number and type of meters you have on your portfolio? Because obviously the impact of these changes will vary based on your meter type. And as Ben touched on, it's really useful and important to understand where you've got those kind of more traditional meter types, which won't give you the granularity of data that you can get from AMR and half hourly. So I'll just give you a second to complete that poll. Because certainly in terms of what you can do ahead of market-wide half hourly, so looking at the timescales that we saw earlier, certainly getting, doing a portfolio view, understanding what your meter types look like is really important, and a real opportunity to make changes now. I can see from the results that you've given, there are 58% of you have a good view of 100% of your portfolio, but there are some of you responding that said that you haven't got that kind of granular view of the portfolio at the moment. So I think that would be a really important first step. In terms of your energy data, so you will have this data. It will be available to you, which will be exciting. 84% of businesses are analysing their data on a monthly basis, and 40% say they use it to support investment decisions in energy saving measures. This really is key to how we make those savings that Ben was talking about in terms of the industry as a whole. Having the data on its own is not enough. I did see that some of you commented on the questions and said it would have been used to have kind of a weekly option, so we will bear that in mind in future. But yeah, so these are the types of things that you can use your energy data for. Ben touched on kind of the opportunity it gives you to kind of just make sure, those common sense things. If my business is closed, why am I using consumption? It could be that provides the basis for making investment decisions about further energy saving measures that you can make. There are a variety of different software options that you can use to understand your energy data. 2/3 of businesses say they use software tools to help them analyse their data, and that's this is very much a world of what we call data visualization platforms. So a variety of metering agents, including ourselves, offer data visualization just to make it a little bit easier to understand and look at your data and compare it potentially across sites or across different businesses. This is an overview of our intelligent analytics platform, which we've developed with the aim of making energy data simple to manage. So it provides easy access to your consumption data, enables you to run detailed reports and look at consumption forecasts, as well as enabling you to set up particular alerts where you want to be alerted if energy levels exceed expected levels. This type of data is absolutely key to enabling you to identify opportunities for energy savings, which will of course translate into carbon emissions reduction savings as well. There's a real opportunity for business energy users to engage with market-wide half-hourly to get the best out of it. That consists of greater data insight, so greater potential energy saving opportunities and in turn carbon savings, which are key to the UK as a whole. There's also an option to choose a metering agent and services that suit your business needs. So great opportunity to look to see what is in the market that would best fit your portfolio. In terms of next steps, it's really important to get a clear view on your current metering contracts and then look at the metering services available in the market. You'll then have more choice on who to appoint as your metering agent. It's important to get ahead of the data, so take time to understand your data so you're prepared for the increased volume available to monitor and analyse. And it's important to work with your supplier to understand their own migration timings and plans, so in turn when this change is going to impact you. Going back to Ben's point, absolutely central to this, wherever you have got traditional metering technology, it would be a real game changer in terms of taking this as an opportunity to change that to more advanced meters. Another question for you. So are you clear about who provides your current metering services? So I'll give you a second to answer that. But yeah, once again, we're asking the question because it is a key element of making these decisions. Is your starting point of what meters have you got at the moment and what are your current metering contracts? In which case, I think it's time for me to hand back over to you, Colette.
Lovely, that's great. Thank you very much, Jo, for your presentation there. Again, a lot to take in from the metering side, and just a point on that QR code that you will see on Jo's final slide there. If you scan that, that will take you through to our frequently asked questions on our npower website. There's a whole raft of frequently asked questions on there, and there's also the options for you to ask questions on there, and that's available throughout the time. So yeah, thank you, Jo. Some really interesting points in there in terms of who your energy providers are, what your metering contracts are, and whether you know them. So that's been great. Thank you very much. So just before we get to the questions and answers, we'd just like to take a final poll, if we could. And it's based on what you've heard about market-wide half-hourly today. What's the first action that you as a business or a third-party intermediary may now take? I'll just give you a couple of minutes to couple of seconds rather, just to answer that. Brilliant, that's great. Some good votes coming in here. So yeah, okay, great. Some good ones in the lead. We're going to review metering portfolios, which I think both Ben and Jo alluded to the facts of why that's so important in order to get those benefits from this huge industry change, and also to then get those agents in place. Look to upgrade traditional non-half-hourly meters is in a close second. Again, absolutely, I think both Ben and Jo have said, again, to access the benefits from this is those traditional meters, is absolutely get those upgraded where you can, and absolutely reaching out to your metering agents or your suppliers to understand your portfolio will be a really, really good thing for yourselves. So that's great. Thank you. So what I'd like to do now is take some questions and answers. And great, I'll welcome Jo and Ben back to the screens. Thank you very much, both. So we've had a lot of questions, some really good themes in here. I'll just pick on the first theme very quickly, which is lots of people are just checking that we will be sharing this recording afterwards with the slides, and absolutely we will. After this event, the recording will be sent out via email afterwards, so you'll be able to watch that on demand. But Jo, if I can give you the first question, again,
Yes.
along the metering line. So question is, for large non-half hourly portfolios, does market-wide half hourly settlement make having a national meter operator contract more beneficial?
So a national standalone meter operator contract allows you to unlink your metering services from your supply agreements. So it would give you the opportunity to source more appropriate metering services for you in a commercial and competitive setting. Once again, it will depend on your metering portfolio and how that's kind of made up. So once again, it'll be one of those questions to ask yourself once you understand what your portfolio looks like. I did forget to reflect on the results of the question about current metering services. So 82% of you have a clear view of who your current metering services are, but 18% said that they didn't. So once again, I think that's a key area to look at, and make sure you understand who you're currently using and which service, and also what services you're getting from them.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jo. Ben, one for you, I think, is what actions are suppliers taking to actively manage this market-wide half-hourly settlement industry change?
Thanks, Colette. So this is a huge industry-wide program. All suppliers will have teams spun up to make this a reality for them, because there's quite some substantial system changes and upgrades that need to happen internally to the supplier to make sure that this is a seamless journey. So, us as a company, we've got a huge internal program team. It must be 50 or 60 people at this stage, which has been in place for a number of years to help make sure that this transition goes really well for our customers and to help the industry where we can.
Great, thank you, Ben. Jo, another popular theme again is talking about, as we would currently understand it, our meter operator contracts. So will they automatically be supplier appointed, or will they be self-appointing?
So that's not going to change in terms of it will still be consumers will be able to choose whether their metering agents are directly contracted or that happens through supplier. I know we see at the top end of the market they are mandatory MOP contracts, but that won't necessarily translate to it being mandatory for all consumers at all levels. That will be a conversation to have with the individual metering agent and indeed your supplier.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jo. Ben, coming back to you, we touched on it in the presentation, but a key theme has been about how the industry will remain open. So again, about how will switching suppliers be affected during this migration period?
So if everything goes smoothly, it shouldn't be affected at all. You should be able to choose a supplier in the same way as you do today throughout the migration period.
And indeed, I think that's been a key theme of the industry programme to ensure that customers' ability to switch remains unimpacted.
Lovely. Thank you both. Jo, just coming back to yourself, again, we touched on it in the presentation, but in terms of some of the key changes, we touched on the change to the top line of an MPAN. And the question in from the polls is, are all MPANs, where migrated or not to market-wide half-hourly settlement, going to use the new format from the 1st of April 2025?
So all MPANs should use the new supplier number format. Apologies, I always call it a top line. From the milestone 8, which is currently the 24th of September 2025. The fields will only be populated with updated IDs once an MPAN has been migrated from the existing to the new arrangements.
Right, okay, so we see the descriptors on the invoice change. That new terminology may land sooner than when consumers actually see those digits in those fields change.
Yes,
that
right.
is after the migration.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Ben, another one for you, if I can. Again, we've talked a lot about traditional meters, but the question in from the audience is, what will happen to unmetered supplies and our traditional meters? Will they go to half-hourly automatically?
So the UMS meters are actually already in the process of moving to half-hourly. That That is a project ongoing and needs to complete by October 2025. That was seen as one of these kind of quick win, can do before the major transition starts kind of changes. If you've got a working AMR or a smart meter on the wall today, nothing needs to change with that. It will automatically flip over to deliver half-hourly data into the industry. If you've currently got a traditional meter, then that will carry on exactly as it is today. So, you'll have to keep reading it. It'll be a pain in the arse, but it will continue to work, and you will be able to have electricity through that meter as we go through the migration and beyond.
Great, thank you. And maybe on a similar theme is, again, Ben, will this be a compulsory requirement for all supplies in the UK, or will it be like previous programmes such as P272 or DCP 161?
So look, this is an industry-wide programme. So the entire industry will move. The previous setup for the industry will cease to exist at the end of the migration period. So absolutely, it's compulsory. Absolutely, everything will go through it. And to get the benefits, you need the best metering portfolio that you can get.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Again, a couple of questions, if we may, on the RTS and the 2G points on the timeline. So again, a couple of questions, just consumers wanting to understand how they know if they've got a radio tele switch meter or if they've got a 2G meter. What would we advise the audience to do in that perspective?
To have that conversation with their meter operator, contact your supplier. They should have that data available, and we'll be able to get that information for you. It might be that they need to come out and do a site inspection because it's relatively old technology in some instances. Whilst radio teleswitch meters still exist, they're not necessarily still being used. So it might be that a site inspection is necessary, but your supplier and your meter operator will be able to work with you to understand both what the metering is on site and also what the best solution is for you going forward.
Okay, great, thank you. And just along the metering theme, again, obviously we've talked about traditional meters and how they will have a load shaping profile and they will be subject to more frequent reads with the settlement window. Lots of audience asking, well, what happens if their meter is unable to send or receive comms? Will it always be treated as a dumb meter, and will there be an open market for these sort of indefinitely?
So it depends on what the status of your meter is. If it's a comms failure, then and it's an AMR meter, then it will move into the ADS segment, and your agent will look to get handheld reads on that meter, as well as making sure that somebody's going out to fix it. It will depend on the type of meter it is and the reason for the lack of communications. But once again, that would be a conversation you could absolutely start having with your meter operator now in terms of understanding some of these different aspects. What is the meter? What's the comms type? And that will also enable you, where necessary, to raise flags about things like 2G and 4G.
I'd just add to that, Joe, that I'd encourage everyone to not accept excuses on this. We have meters in the Highlands of Scotland. We have meters buried hundreds of meters below London. Yeah, you can get a flipping signal if you try hard enough. So push your agents, and if your agent isn't doing what you need them to do to get these meters working properly, come to me and we'll do you a deal, because we will get them working properly.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ben, for that.
Everyone in the background in my teams is wincing,
My face didn't change, Ben.
but this is true. You can get signal if you try hard enough, and if it's genuinely an exceptional circumstance, there's nearly always a way around these things.
Great, thank you. Well, on that, again, there's lots of people asking. So obviously there's consumers out there who have had, historically have had to appoint their own meter operator contracts, their own DC contracts. Obviously there's a proportion of the marketplace where predominantly that's been supplier appointed. And those people in the audience are now asking about, if they don't know who their metering agents are, how best do they go about finding that out? Is their best approach to their supplier to get them to share with them?
I will be able to tell them very clearly who each of their agents are at the moment. Yes, okay. And whether they're appointed by them or anybody else. No, but they'll have been appointed by the supplier. But as to whether they believe that was customer initiated in the first instance. So yeah, absolutely get in touch with your supplier.
The other thing I'd add on that one is, at the point you've found out who your meter operator is, find out whether you're in a contract or whether your contract end dates are coming up, because this is a competitive market, and you can absolutely get good service for a reasonable cost or terrible service for a really expensive cost, depending on how active you are in that market. It's the same as getting a mobile phone. It's the same as getting car insurance. Make sure that you're on top of this. There's cost savings. There's good service available in the market.
That's great, thank you. Another question is, we talk about market-wide half-hourly settlement form as an industry program and things, but we talk about the energy meters. Does it include gas? And if it doesn't, are we aware of any updates on the system for half-hourly data for gas?
So this market-wide half-hourly program is focused just on power, for starters. But of course, the focus on getting AMR and smart meters has been across gas and power. So yeah, I guess it's my expectation that we will start to see more. I mean, obviously the way that gas is settled is completely different from power at the moment. But yeah, I think there's all sorts of opportunities to align between the two over time. But yeah, this project and program at the moment is focused on power.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jo. Again, we've talked about traditional meters and the need to upgrade those, and a couple of questions coming in from the audience are around who is leading the instalment of those. So will the meter operators, where they know there are traditional meters, will they be pushing the consumers to upgrade those meters, or is this a customer driven requirement? Who should lead this?
Usually it's led by the supplier working with the meter operator in order to roll out advanced or smart meters. It is absolutely key to have that kind of customer engagement. So really, if you're not sure, please contact your supplier or your MOP and ask what the plans are for your meter. I suspect that they will be delighted to hear from you, ask you a lot of questions about site contact information and any health or safety requirements, but then we'll be very keen to talk to you about how they can upgrade your meter. So it is largely supplier led. The work itself is done by meter operators, but key to that is the age old question of how do you get into the site to be able to do that. And it might well be that we've done a cold call and or your meter operator suppliers organised a cold call, and that just hasn't been the right time for you, or there have been other issues that have meant that you couldn't turn the power off if that was necessary. But so yeah, I'd really encourage you to contact your supplier and ask them what else you can do to enable that installation to go ahead, because I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear from you.
Yeah, so I suppose to make it real for everyone, we've got a team internally who's cold calling our customers to try to get these meters on the wall. This is a win-win-win for absolutely everyone if we can get these ancient clock dials banished from the UK and advanced metering fitted to every UK business. It's a win for the UK energy transition, it's a win for that individual business, and it's a win for the supplier.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Again, along the themes of meters and the communications with the meters, so people may have meters installed which are capable of recording half-hourly data, but where there is poor signal or issues with those meters, those, particularly in the smart world, some of them not communicating. Is the move from 2G to 4G, do we see that as solving some of the issues for some of those non-polling meters where it is signal based?
I think it's difficult to answer that kind of in a generic sense, because nothing unfortunately is kind of the magic answer. But certainly having a conversation with your supplier, meter operator, they should be and will be at the moment. We're looking at the moment at our comms methods and looking to go out and upgrade them to 4G, and in some instances that does resolve long-standing comms issues, but I'd hesitate to promise that. But yeah, I think that would be the expectation, and also it starts the conversation, because once again they might have been trying to do kind of cold calls. It might be that there's additional steps that need to be taken, but as Ben mentioned, where there's a will, there's a way.
Great, thank you. And you did touch upon this theme within the presentation around the changes to supply line on the MPAN, and one person has missed which type of the meters will still support O2 and O4 profiles. So we said economy 7. Could we clarify what the other meter type was that would still support O2 and O4 profile classes?
That will be, I understand, traditional meters that will still support those types. I think it might be in the smart market, but I'd have to check that.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Ben, one for yourself. We talked about the benefits and everything that market-wide half-hourly settlement would bring. What would you say would be almost, if you could have a top 5 of some of the challenges and benefits of market-wide half-hourly? What would you say to that?
Okay, so top couple of benefits, and we'll take this from a consumer angle first. Right, so the first benefit is that if we can get accurate half-hourly data from all of your meters, we can get that presented back to the consumer, and it's really empowering for that consumer to then know what's going on their site and when, so that they can take action in their business to lower those costs. The second benefit, if we go through market-wide appropriately with all the metering working, is that billing should get more accurate, because the industry is going to be making far more effort to get all those readings in within that 4-month window. So this kind of stuff where you get one read for the year and it wipes out everything and then you have to start again, a lot of that should go, because the whole industry is going to be focused on getting the reads in on this 4-month timeline. The third really then is up to that consumer. So if that consumer or that business can get themselves with the supplier who's forward thinking, with the supplier who's offering time of use tariffs, then that transition to market-wide opens up all kinds of possibilities for that business, such as a really low overnight rate if you've got an EV fleet, really working with that half-hourly data, working with time of use to bring down your costs for that business. You know, we're in the winter. If you just have a flat day-night rate for your business, then you're absolutely paying for some of that capacity market spike in the evening, which is all the people across the UK putting the kettle on and putting their ovens on. And businesses shouldn't be paying for that stuff. We should be able to move consumption out of that period so that those capacity market costs are not borne by UK businesses. Couple of the challenges, right? First challenge, it's a massive IT change. So we've had a couple of questions in the chat. How do we believe the current timelines? Well, all I can tell you is, yes, we've all been there before on industry-wide IT changes. Yes, they're very hard, but everyone is under the maximum level of pressure to get this done right and on the right timelines. But getting it done right is the priority. So if it has to go back, it'll have to go back. At the moment, hopefully, everything looks like we're holding to the existing timelines, and we're certainly a part of making sure that that's as likely as it can possibly be. So that's number one challenge. Number two challenge is really realizing the benefits. So we can do all this stuff in the background, but if we don't get a change in consumer behavior after the change, then we'll just have the exact same system, really, really accurately reporting the exact same costs. So that's the second challenge, is really it's not easy for businesses to do this, but is grasping the benefits of having gone through this change once it's complete.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Jo, if we could just touch a bit on the data visualization piece that you mentioned in the presentation. Then there's some themes in the questions again about people that have got half-hourly meters but don't actually have access to the data. They don't have data visualization tools. Are there levels of data that they should be able to access as a minimum, and what would be the suggested steps for them to get a data visualization tool, should they so wish?
So I would suggest that they should talk to their supplier around what is available. It can be quite different in terms of across different customer types as what is immediately available, but there should be a minimum data requirement. I would suggest would be interval data, but you need to consider whether that was already included in any kind of data collector contract that you've already got, or whether that's provided as a minimum by your supplier, in terms of what's available. So contact your supplier. Potentially it's something to have a conversation with your data collector about, in terms of what tools they've got that would support you in that area. But yeah, there's all sorts of different things. It's worth having a think about what it is you're interested in before you have those conversations, just to make sure that the data visualization that you're being offered meets your needs. It's one thing to have the data, but another thing to be able to use it. So I think that's really key in giving some thought to what kind of decisions you want to be able to make off the back of that. What kind of things might be useful? If, for example, you've got a group of stores, do you want to be able to compare the consumption across those stores? Things like that, just to make sure that the data visualization that you're offered meets your needs, and understand what kind of the minimum requirements are that you're given on either contract, but also think about what you need to make sure that you get that.
Okay.
I'll give a very brief plug because Joe's been too polite to do it.
Sorry.
If you take DC from us, we have a fantastic visualization tool that helps you do all of those things, and we invest. We've got a plan to invest millions of pounds in that over the coming few years. So, best in class data viz from NBS.
Great. Thank you very much, Ben. And just, sadly, that's all we've got time for now, just looking at the time. So I'd like to give a very big thank you to Ben and Joe, our presenters. I think we've had a really action-packed agenda, covered a lot of topics, and thank you to the audience for all of the questions and the answers to the polls. Hopefully you're all leaving with a much clearer idea of what market-wide half-hourly settlement reform is and how it may impact you. As we said, we will be sharing a recording of this webinar so that you can share it with colleagues or watch it again on demand. It will also include a link to a new data and metering guide that will be published in the coming weeks, which you can pre-register for. And it will also cover things like why data and metering is important, which metering technology is right for your business, and how to select the right metering partner. Again, all themes we've touched on. And finally, again, there is our frequently asked questions section on our external npower Business website, which is on the QR code. So if you scan that at any time you've got questions. And finally, thank you for all of the questions. Apologies that we haven't covered them all today, but rest assured we've got these. We will take those back into the business, and we will get you answers via email in due course. So thanks again, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.